feel like with every new generation of Pokemon, we return to the same age-old debate. What makes a good Pokemon design? From Chonkachu to Peekaboo to whether or not a pair of keys can make the grade as an actual Pokemon. There's nothing quite like losing your mind over some imaginary pocket creatures. However, I think we can all agree on the fact that the original Gen 1 back sprites are truly horrendous. What are you? But like anything, it's pretty easy to just sit on the sidelines and throw your opinions around without seeing what's actually involved in the design and creation of Pokemon for each new game. And it's always been a dream of mine to create my own Pokemon and character models, so I thought I'd give it a go for myself and find out if I can design and 3D model my own original starter Pokemon from scratch. The only problem is I can't draw well, I've never used 3D modeling software before, and I'm gonna try to do it in just over a week. What could go wrong? Thankfully, a lot of Pokemon's designs aren't exactly rocket science. Crab, turtle, mermaid cat. And because I live on the continent of Australia and ride a kangaroo to the supermarket, I figured I'd base my starter Pokemon on some iconic Australian wildlife. So let's meet our wildlife influences. First up, we have our grass-type starter, which will be based on the iconic emu. Now, I don't trust any bird that has forward-facing eyes, and having fought against humanity in the 1932 Great Emu War, this is one giraffe bird that you don't want to mess with. Next up, we have our water type, which will be based on the platypus. With the beak of a duck, feet of an otter, and tail of a beaver, this animal is so strange that at first glance, taxonomists thought it was a hoax. And last but not least, we have our fire starter, which is based on the Tasmanian devil. Their names may sound scary, but they're really just like small scavenger dogs that you probably shouldn't pet. And now that we have our inspirations, it's time to turn them into Pokemon. Now, just to give you an idea of what we're working with here, I opened Procreate and tried to warm up my art skills by drawing a Pikachu. And it was a bit of a disaster. It became very apparent that I was in way over my head. So I gave up on Procreate and opened Illustrator. And after working away and moving around a bunch of shapes, I was finally ready to print my first draft for my emu Pokemon. If I had a kid and they came home from school with this drawing, I would call an exorcist. I may have absolutely no art skills, but I am stubborn to the point of stupidity. So I soldiered on, and eventually through blind luck and determination, I had my first completed Pokemon design. It looks more like it might be a second or third evolution, but I'm just gonna stick with it. I tried thinking of a name for it as well, and all I could think of was Emumon, but it's not a Digimon, so if you have any name ideas for any of these Pokemon, please leave them in the comments below. Thankfully, my other designs turned out better than my naming skills, and I finished my platypus Pokemon, which comes complete with spiky weenuses, and I also finished my Tasmanian Devil Pokemon. So with my happy little trio in place, it was time to enter the deep dark world of 3D modeling. Now technically I have done some 3D modeling in the past for my Game Builder Garage videos, but none of it has been particularly good. Except maybe my Sonic model. I love its flappy arms. But I have absolutely no idea how to use actual 3D modeling software, and the last time I opened Blender, I couldn't even figure out how to move the default cube or camera or anything. So I was definitely going to need some help. I decided to start my own Blender bootcamp, found a bunch of free and paid tutorials, and after 2 days of cramming like the most important exam of my life was just around the corner, I'd created a lighthouse scene, video game assets like barrels, boxes, walls, and pillars, an anthropomorphic cat with horribly disfigured hands. I don't know how people do fingers in Blender. Mine just look like mangled sausages. And I even made this cute little rabbit. Despite all of these designs, I still didn't feel prepared to make my own Pokemon, but 99% of my videos is me throwing myself overboard and just hoping that I don't drown. So with the confidence that only naivety can bring, I set out on my own and began to model my Pokemon. Luckily, my designs use a lot of basic shapes, and I decided against trying to sculpt the Pokemon as one mesh, instead opting to make them from different shapes stuck together, giving them a style similar to the claymation Pokemon cards. I actually had a lot of fun with this process. I didn't worry too much about trying to get everything absolutely perfect, and instead just put some good music on, sipped some tea, and just moved vertices around until I got lost in the flow. There were a few parts that were fiddly, like the feet and arm extrusions, but to my surprise, I ended up with models for each Pokemon that I felt pretty good about. I'd gone from this to this. I can't believe it! And I even had a bit of time up my sleeve, so I decided that I'd try to create simple scenes for each of the Pokemon to be rendered in. I found some amazing YouTube channels that helped me to learn how to create material shaders for water, rocks, and grass, and fire effects. And once each of the scenes were finished, I left them to render for like 100 hours and hoped that my laptop didn't crash or overheat or burst into 1,000 flames. And so just over a week later, I present to you my Australian wildlife-inspired starter Pokemon. Well, this definitely ended up being way harder than I anticipated, and I can't even begin to imagine having to do this for hundreds of Pokemon. I don't think that my designs could make the cut for actual starter Pokemon in a real game, but maybe they could squeeze themselves onto the roster somewhere. I'd love to know what you thought of my designs, and hit me up with any name suggestions you have for each of the starter Pokemon. And if this inspired you to give 3D modeling a go for yourself, then I'll leave a link to the tutorials I used in the description. Because if I can make this, then anyone can. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day.